This session we are still actually going over the internal locks that are present in locks translator in GlusterFS. The next session will be the last session on locks translator, which will have external locks, which are like the POSIX locks that are implemented by any file system. So this is the scope. We will see how entry LKs behave, and I'll try to go through the code for how the entry LKs are acquired and released. It will be similar to that of inode LKs, almost similar actually. Then there is like the dependency of entry LK and inode LK, and how that led to a recent change in locks translator. This change, the last 2 points, that change is done by Xavi very recently, actually, maybe in the last year, I think. So we are still identifying some subtle bugs in this part, but that is how it is in locks translator. You will only find bugs after a long time. So okay, so just to recap, entry LKs are used in GlusterFS to synchronize the entry operations like mkdir and touch, create mkdir, or mknode, and like hard link or rename, all these directory operations that actually manipulate the file names. So basically, essentially, they either should like rename a name of the inode, or they are supposed to create a name to inode mapping, or delete a name to inode mapping. So unlink actually deletes the name to inode mapping. All the creation fobs like mkdir, mknode, and link, etc. They actually create the mapping. Rename is the only one which actually does both. In a sense, it will both delete mapping and create a mapping for the inode. So yeah, so entry LKs are used to synchronize these sorts of operations between the clients that use them. Just like we have the ranges in inode LKs, which are like offsets and length. We here have the names that we synchronize on. The only other thing that is important here is just like we have like 0 to infinity, which is like a full file lock, which is represented by length 0 in inode LK. In entry LK, the full directory lock is represented as null value for the name. So that is a little bit about entry LKs. Now we will try to see how they operate. So let's say there is a directory dir1. If two if two clients are trying to manipulate let's say different names, like let's say client 1 is manipulating name 1, client 2 is manipulating name 2. When you even if you execute them from same client or different client, it does not matter, because there is no conflicting operation here. So they would use separate names for acquiring entry LKs, and they both will be granted. But if like the names are conflicting, if they are either same, so if the names are same on the directory, but LK owner client differs, then you are going to grant them one after the other, which is like, the first client should take the log, do its operation, then do an unlock. After which you will get the second one granted. So until then, if the operation is like a blocking lock, it will be waiting state. It will be in waiting state. All right. So similarly, so this is one change. As you can see, if one client wants to take a lock on the entire directory, and another client wants to take a lock on just one name, they are still conflicting. So the same rules apply. So if the lock owner or client differs, then one has to be granted after the other. So Similar to the inodel case, if the lock owner and client matches, you are assuming that the caller actually knows what they are doing. This used to happen in entry cell field part of AFR, but now the code doesn't use this anymore. But this behavior is still there. So, which maybe we should move after, remove after some time, because this can lead to starvations. But yeah, so even if the names match, they will names conflict, they will actually be granted. So yeah, so this is one peculiarity in both NPLKs and even in InnoDLKs also we have something similar. So you are basically letting the client do the correct thing here. All right, so let's go through the code. Is this visible for you guys?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this logs POSIX.c is where the call would come, which is the entry LK. So entry LK is on the inode and FNTLK is on the FD. Same rules apply as inode LK and FNode LK. But I don't think in the code at the moment, at least anybody uses FNTLK. It's like very rarely used. Actually, it's not used so far, but it exists. So if in future, if you want to use it, maybe we can. All right, so let's go to the NTLK code. So this is like the common one for both FNTLK and NTLK. Only this, whether you are getting this inode from LOC or here in this case FD, only these things change. All right. So the kind of things that are happening in this code path would look very similar to the inode LK. So the same rules apply here also. We basically need to maintain a list of resources or logs that we grant for that connection, so that if there is a connection disconnection, if there is a disconnect from a client, we can clean up those logs. So that this is like going to be crucial. So we actually get the client of that connection. And this domain is like the namespace, which is similar to the one that we saw in inode LK. Then we actually build the entry lock structure with the inputs that we get, which is like the base name is the most important one for that directory inode. The type could be like the, okay, we can probably show you type if it is. Yeah. Yeah, so basically we have read lock, write lock, and then we also have the command which is like lock. Lock is like your wait blocking lock. Unlock is for unlocking. NB is for like non-blocking lock, which is like a mutex try lock variant where you will return E again if it fails. So there are some validation checks, but that I think is fine. So yeah, we basically are going to store all the important information like who's the owner, what is the domain, what is the PID, who's the client, all this information, and then we actually initialize the list. All right. So after this, we okay. So this is that is done for. I think this is contributed by Facebook team because they used to get at that time a lot of these stale logs. So they have this concept of revocation, which is like if a lock is active for more than X minutes or X hours, it will just go ahead and unlock it. So because they did not want outages, so this will take care of, like, unlock the stuck lock. So it was, in a way, it is like, it's a workaround to the bugs that were present at that time. Yeah. So now that we have all of this information, we will now go ahead and do the entry LK. So the same kind of check that we had in inode LK, also we have it in entry LK as well. So basically, we need to check whether there are conflicting entry LKs. This code is kind of similar. Instead of checking for range overlap, you just check whether the names are conflicting. So names of all names is nothing but null. If it is either all names, or if the strcmp is like equality in of strings in C. I'm just letting everybody know, because there are some Java developers here. So yeah, so the other one is the owner part. Owner is always like LK owner plus the client. So two clients can have same LK owner, but the same client wouldn't have same LK owner if you want them to be separate operations. So that is what it checks. If they are conflicting, then it is actually going to return 1. In that case, you are going to say, like, okay, this one is conflicting, so you kind of return that conflicting log. It looks like we are also doing some contention notifications. Okay, yeah. So basically, every time there is a conflicting log, you kind of notify the client saying that somebody tried to lock the same resource that you held, so that the client can actually start trying to send an unlock immediately, so that it can prevent starvation. This part is a bit important in the sense that you don't want two clients operating on separate directories or separate files to keep taking locking and unlocking. It is like unnecessary network operation. So this is a better model where you kind of notify the client saying, okay, now you have some conflicting locks. Please try to unlock as soon as possible. So this is the code that does that. So if there is a conflicting lock, then you will try to add that lock to blocked locks. So if it is non-blocking lock, then you have to just return E again. So this is like a try again. Otherwise, you kind of store this into the list of blocked entry LKs in that domain, and you are done basically. Okay, let's say if it is not blocking, sorry, if it can be granted, then you kind of does a similar check with the number of with all the blocked locks to see if the entry LK request is actually conflicting with any of the blocked locks. So even if that is the case, then you kind of add it to block locks. This is the one that kind of refers to the this check, where, like, if the LK owner and client matches, even if they are conflicting, it will grant, right? So this is the check. Okay. All right. So that is yeah. So basically, at the end, if there are no conflicting locks, you just add the lock to the list of locks that are granted. So you basically maintain all these times so that you can kind of check that when it is granted, when it is blocked. So these are important in debugging any of the bugs that involve deadlocks or stale locks that happen from time to time. It's been a while since such a thing was reported, but I think in release 3, release 4, that time we used to get one of these once in a while. So yeah, so once this happens, if the lock is granted or like or it is like blocked, then you have to also add it to the list of locks that is maintained by the client, so that when the disconnect happens, you can just go through that complete list and it will do an unlock or like unwind if it is a block lock. So yeah, so that is the main part that happens. Unlock is like, it's similar. It is like a reverse operation. So you actually find the matching lock, which is like, names are equal and entry is also, like the entry LK owner is also same. So once that happens, you can like, you found the matching lock and you will just do a deletion from this list of granted locks, and that's it, you are done. So yeah, so this is the main thing, and once the unlock happens, you also kind of see if any of the block locks can now be granted. This is again similar to the one that we saw in inode locks. So you basically go through the list and you run the same thing, try to lock it. So yeah, so this is the entry LK part. Yeah, so you unwind once the operation is done. Yeah, so this is the first part of this session. Yeah, we have covered till here. Are there any doubts in this part so far?
No.
Okay, moving on then. So this is a recent introduction so this was introduced recently to the logs translator. So this is a bug that was first uncovered in EC, where, so okay, if you look at the presentation so far, even the code so far, right, you always saw that entry LKs and inode LKs are orthogonal, means they don't have any dependencies with each other. But what was found is like, this is the case that kind of led to the issue. So if you create a volume and mount it on 2 separate clients, on one client you do a mkdir and in another client you do a rename of that directory back and forth. If you wait for some minutes and try to do like rm minus rf of the directory, like it was giving input output error. So after debugging this issue, we found that the main reason why this was happening is if you want to do inode operations, you need that inode to be present. And if you want to do entry operations, you need the parent directory to be present. But the thing is, when you are trying to delete the last name, like for example, I can probably show here. So if you can, touch A. Now, if you do ddif something like this, you are basically trying to modify this file. So it will take appropriate logs and it will do the operation. Similarly, if you do mntr3 and if you do rm-fa, this actually is going to take an entry lock on the parent directory, which is like the root of this mount. So this lock and this lock ideally don't have any connection until you see the actual connection. So the thing is, when you delete this file here, this inode is no longer there. So in a way, this entry lock and this inode lock are dependent, in the sense that if you are trying to do an unlink, r-f is actually going to delete the file using a system called unlink. So if you are doing an unlink, what should happen to the operations and locks that are already present in this inode was the fundamental question that had to be answered to prevent this bug. Okay. Did you guys understand the problem?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So basically we need a way to like synchronize between these two operations also. So what we thought initially was, since deleting a file involves deleting the inode also, the logical conclusion was this unlink operation should do it should take an entry lock on the parent directory, but it should also take a full file lock on this file so that no other operations would happen, and then the deletion will be done, right? So that would be a one way to solve this. But the issue with that is performance. So something that was taking only one lock will now require like multiple locks. So the performance was affected quite a bit. So we have kind of punted the ordering problem to the locks translator. So this is something that Zavi did. So what the change does is it will try to prevent the deletion of entries that are already locked. And you can't actually give errors if operations are going on. So you basically put them, put the unlink operation or rename operation into a queue, and once the unlock happens, you will actually let the unlink go through. So that way you kind of achieve the synchronization. Okay, so we will try to go through this part of the code and understand, like, whatever I've described, how it is done. This is going to be a little bit involved, so I'm not completely sure whether everyone will get this in this or not, but I'll give it a try. Okay, so we will try to see, and like as this description explains, right? So the code change has to be in both deletion operations on the directory and also the inode LK of the that particular inode. So we will try to see what are the changes that are done to understand this a bit better. So let's first look at something like an unlink. Rename is a little bit involved because it manipulates two entries. So let's look at something simple, which is like an unlink. So instead of just doing an handing over the unlink to the lower translators, it will do some extra operations here. So what it will try to do is it will see if on that inode are there any inode locks. So it will do this check. So if there are no inode LKs that are in progress, it will say, like, I'm going to start running remove. So I'm going to log this inode from further inode LKs until this remove completes. So this will be treated as if you have you got a full file lock. You're basically simulating in locks translator that you are taking a full file lock. Rather full inode lock, which you are comfortable with. So then once it detects, yeah, so this is like the success path, right, where you can go ahead with the lock unlink. Okay, now if the unlink is successful, Now you are going to do the opposite, where you actually you decrement the removal operations, and once that is done, you kind of set this is lock to false, which is equivalent to doing a full file unlock. And then you will try to do a all the inode logs that may be there. Now you try to do a lock again. Okay, so that is one thing. And the second, okay, so one question, like, why is this a counter? Why is this not a flag? Any guesses?
There are multiple operations. F of some.
Yeah, why? Okay, so let's say there are multiple operations. Why would there be multiple operations on the same inode if we are taking locks?
You have mentioned we are adding the operation to queue, and there might be some pending in the queue that has to be done before removing the lock.
No, yeah, that part is fine, but the question is more along the lines of when can the number of removal operations be many if we are taking appropriate locks? So yeah, so this is a little bit involved in the sense that for the same inode you can have multiple names, right? Hard links. So you can have like 3 separate directories, but all of them have one file which is hard links to each other. Like it's like hard links to the same inode. So you can do unlink, unlink, unlink on 3 separate directories. Okay. So which it is taking entry lock on that parent directory, but it is actually affecting the same inode. Right. So that is the reason why the number of removals can be more than one. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so this is what the removal code path does. Then the second one is second one is the what does okay, so this is the success path where the inode LK is actually not there and removal is going ahead. Okay, let's say when it is trying to do an unlink again from first code path, like unlink is issued. Now we are trying to do the same thing. We are trying to prepare this inode removal, but now you actually find that this inode has owners, meaning there are some operations that are in progress on this. In this case, you do this you actually create this operation as a stub and put it into a queue. Okay. So in this case, all these inodes are put in some wait queue, and this is like again like you are putting this lock as if it is like in a block list. We are simulating that case, and then you're also notifying the contention saying you may have to do unlock soon. Okay. So it is setting up all of this state. Now the control flow is now completely dependent on what happens in inode LK. So let's look at that. This is the same code path we looked at last time, but we are going to look at it from the perspective of inode remove. This handling of this inode removal. It is here. Yeah. So this is the code path that handles the synchronization with the unlinks and all that. There is some special handling. This is a bit more involved, but like, if it is not locked, that means no unlink operations are going on. There's nothing to do here. But if there are some unlinks that are in progress, then you have to kind of block the inode LK, right? So this is something like, if the removals are running but they are from the same client, then you again do the same thing that we discussed before. You are basically assuming that the client knows what they are doing. But otherwise, it will return something greater than 0, which will amount to it becoming like a blocked lock. So it will follow the blocked lock logic, and it will go and sit in the blocking lock list. Okay, so here it gets added in the blocked lock list. And once the unlocks happen, so now we have to look at the unlock code. Yeah, so this is the unlock code. And here, like, this is the code that we saw in the last session. So basically, it is going to, like, if the if the ease lock is true, then it is going to kind of for all of the owners from this list, it is going to move them to the tail, and then it will do one waking up. So all of them, like, all the unlinks that were blocked or whatever, right? Now they will actually resume. Okay, so instead of the inode LK that is coming from the client for each of the entry, we are kind of simulating everything in the logs translator. So these flags are kind of making sure that we are simulating a full file lock whenever there is an unlink operation, and vice versa. So that's what is happening. So did you guys understand it, or was it too much? A little bit involved though, this code, so you kind of need to go through it multiple times. If there are any questions, post them on GitHub chat.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this is the other part that I wanted to discuss. So with this, like, the most of the thing that I wanted to cover is kind of done, but there are like 2 more things that I would like to cover, which is a common code that we have seen last time also. Is this here? Disconnect? No, I don't know. Yeah. So last time we have seen this that whenever a client disconnect is received, we were cleaning up the clients. We need to do something similar even for the entry logs. The code will look similar, okay? Actually, there is a lot of code duplication. Maybe we should take care of that. But the basically it is going through all the logs that are there in this client, that were there in the client. And if it is a blocked lock, sorry, if it is a granted lock, then it will just like free it. If it is a blocked lock, it has to unwind. So that's what it does. Like all the lock requests that are in the unwind list will be unwound. All the granted ones are deleted, and you will subsequently do this granting of the blocked entries. So that also will be done. Yeah, so this is the other part. Now we will also look at the the state dump. I wanted to show you guys. Maybe it is better to click something. Let me do it like this. Okay. If we are running it like this is a replica volume, and we take a state dump. Now run Gluster. Then Gluster dump. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is like the state dump file that we got for this client process. Okay. Oh, sorry. I should have taken a state dump of the brick. One second. Let me do this thing again. So when we take state dump, we will get all the logs on a particular inode. So if the path information is available, even that gets printed. Okay, so like this is the domain, which is like the replicate 0 is the domain name. So this is like you can see from this that it is introduced by the IO path, and this also tells you like start is 0, len is 0. This means this is the full file lock. Okay, because replication does an eager lock, which instead of taking small ranges, it will take one big full file lock, and it will optimize the number of locks and unlocks. So that is what this is like. This is like that remove pending, which is the code that we just saw. Like there are no unlink operations that are going on. So this is the information that gets printed. Actually, while preparing slides for this, I found one bug. Maybe I can show you that also. Let's actually, let's do one more mounting also. So now if I go to this D3 and if I do Rm-1, look, see that this is hanging, right? It shouldn't be hanging, right? Ideally, it should go through. Okay. We'll take a statement also. All right. Now, as soon as I stop this, it will go through. You see, now it won't be there. See, the one is not there anymore, right? So this is a bug that I found while preparing slides for this one and going through the code. We can actually see. I think this one will have. Okay, so it hasn't gotten removed for not pending at that time. Okay, so but I can tell you what was happening. This same test case on disperse volume works. Okay. The reason why it is not working on a replica volume is because this client contention notification that the brick is sending, replication is not handling it. So we need to fix that case. Until then, it will hang as long as something like this happens. So yeah, so that is one interesting thing that I found. Yeah, so I think this is what I wanted to cover in this. This is the shorter lecture because bulk of the things that we covered in the last session itself. Next session we will be covering the what is that? POSIX locks. So that is a little bit bigger, and even the way it operates is a little bit different. So that should be a bit more informative and probably a little bit longer than this. But yeah, this is all I had for this. Any doubts? No doubts?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. Then I'll stop the record.